Thank you all for being here. I want to thank Raven for that presentation, talking about transit for a while and the work that they've been doing, and heard some incredible things. We're going to keep working to improve that. Before we jump to our next presentation, I do want to acknowledge we do have State Senator Alika Costa-Jones. Always thank her for being here. I have Mr. Gates, Sean Gates has an institute he just started working with young people. I want to give him a couple minutes before we get to our houses presentation to talk about the work he's doing.
Brandon, can I have a couple minutes?
At the end.
No, I can't be at the end.
Let's go, Mr. Gates.
I have to leave.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. How you doing?
Good morning.
My name is Sean Gates, and I started the Gates Institute about 2 years ago. We just recently we're mentoring program here in Wichita. I'm new to the Gates Institute is new, but I'm not new to the field. I work with children from juveniles all the way up to 4.0 students at magnet schools that are getting ready to go to college. In my time, what I recognize is that schools, by their nature, focus on the very low functioning students. They generate a lot of income. All the very high functioning students because they're good marketing tools. That leaves the majority of our students who are in between missing out on that mentorship piece that they do. The Gates Institute is, I like to think of it as revolutionary. First of all, you got me. And so that's that, right? Thank you, thank you. The number two is we're actually a for-profit model. Working with non-for-profits, what it showed me is that a lot of times people come in and they have a mandate that they want to do, but in order to stay open, they're forced to chase grants, which means their attention gets diverted from what their original mission is. We wanted to have a for-profit model because that allowed us to invest directly into the skills and the technical things that we need to develop our children into who they need to be. We expect our children legally to handle business like an adult when they turn 18, yet we know they don't have those skills. We expect that an 18-year-old will handle business just as efficiently as a 36-year-old who's twice their age. Yeah, when I was 36 a couple of days ago, I realized that I didn't know anything. And so that's why I started the Gates Institute. We wanted to help the youth of our community transition into adulthood smoother. The other part of our agenda is to identify the brightest minds of our community, regardless of race, regardless of anything, identify the brightest minds of our community and help them get to careers that are underserved for our community. More doctors, more lawyers, more teachers, more politicians, more police departments. These things are underserved in our community. So that's part of what Gates Institute does and kind of how we're different. We've also different because there are a lot, and I do mean a lot of programs that are out there that are very wonderful, that are doing great work. We didn't want to just take on services just to say that, hey, we do this. It's more important for me to refer people to other programs that are good rather than having overlapping services. People are already doing the work. We don't want to overlap services and waste resources. So we kind of differ in that part. I partnered with therapists because I'm not a therapist, but kids need mental health. From my time on the mental health board, I recognize that. Also, my program differs because of my personal philosophy. I met with a couple of people and they've been talking about the uptick in violence in our community. While I do understand that, my philosophy is very different. I think that we're sending the wrong message to children by focusing on things in trouble. It says to the kids who are doing the right thing, all I have to do is act a fool to get the attention I need. So rather rewarding those for getting on par where they should be, we should empower those who are already doing right so that they don't become a part of at-risk youth. Now, ask yourself, what is at-risk youth? What does that actually mean? If you don't have there's an input and the output. Too many of the programs have been dealing with the output. The output is the behaviors. The output is the riskiness that these children take. But the input is children who feel loved, who feel valued, who feel like they're on a path to success determined by them, not us, by them, don't exhibit those behaviors. And so I wanted to come out today to kind of tell you about it. If you did not get a flyer, please get a flyer. I will pass one out to you. If you would like for me to come out and meet with your organization, and we can talk about how we can work together. I do have a sign-up sheet, forgive me, I was running behind this morning with my son, so it's kind of informal. But I will pass this around, I'll be happy to talk. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
What exactly are your services and how do you get paid? Who pays for it since you're for profit?
So that is a great question. My philosophy is put your money where your mouth is. We spend hundreds of dollars on shoes for our kids, put them in sports programs, and statistics show only 1% of student athletes will go to a school with a full ride, and only 1% of those will go pro. So we all know that as your kid's the next LeBron, you might want to get some skill sets. What we teach is mental toughness. On my time on the mental health board, what I realized is that our community does have a need for mental health services, but there's a difference between mental health issues and mental weakness. What I teach kids to do is be stronger mentally. It's unrealistic to think that you're going to go through life and not have any problems. As adults, the thing that separates us from children is when we wake up in the morning, we know how to put out the fire. We know how to problem solve. So I teach them that. I teach them emotional intelligence. I do advocate for them to not any particular religion, but have some sense of spirituality in your life. Children who have sense of spirituality, who participate in some religious service, normally don't get in trouble at the same rate as others. I hope that answers your question. Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 questions. Number one, when were you established?
So we were established in 2023, we opened in 2024. To answer your question, I apologize. So the funding comes from parents or other organizations that we work with.
And you also mentioned having, I'm gonna call it a STEM focus. Are you collaborating with, well, I'm a firm believer it starts at home. Are you collaborating with churches, ministers, leaders in the spiritual community, if you will?
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why I was invited here today by Mr. Johnson, which I appreciate your invite very much. So yes, so actually I've collaborated and I want to tell you guys about a series of workshops that we're putting on this summer. I'll get this passed around for you if you're interested in it. I partner with Jumpstart Gas Station, Mr. Johnson here, Evergy, WSU Tech. There's also a mentoring program called First Tee that teaches underprivileged kids how to play golf. It's right at McDonald's course. They give them clubs, they teach them how to play, and they can play from 5 years old up until the time they graduate. And so we are hosting a workshop that will be at Evergy Connect Center, which is 111 South Ellis. The first workshop will be moving out of my parents' home. The second one will be transitioning to adulthood, and the third one will be job skills. So yes, we partner with a lot of people. Yes, we do.
That's a good one.
No, go ahead. She had 3 questions. Got one more.
Thank you, sir. And you may have it on your flyer. I haven't seen it yet, but what opportunities do you offer for volunteers?
Absolutely, we're always looking for volunteers. So I'm what I would consider myself is a general mentor, right? But there may be another person who is like in a specific field. So it's my job to find this kid and put them with someone that's in their field. One of the mandates that I talked about is increasing the number of financial advisors, the number of lawyers, the number of doctors. So I've already reached out to certain doctors, certain lawyers to put these kids with them because we can't just expect that they're just gonna get there on their own.
So I feel in your brochure, you got a contact number and an email. Yep, physical address.
So right now I partner with, so this is part of it. In order to save money, I partner with other people. So we're housed out of the Wichita Indo-Chinese Center, which is on 2502 East Douglas. It's just diagonal from East High, across from the old Hardys, from you guys who are old enough to remember. Some of y'all-
Yep.
Right. So we have classrooms, but I wanted to do that instead of getting the overhead of a building to be able to pass along the savings to families. Yes, ma'am.
What's your age range?
So traditionally, our age range is about 16 to 21, actually, but I'll take them as young as 13.
Do you have anything, we always, use a bad term, we always jack about doctors and lawyers.
Yeah.
What are we doing to build the trades industry? You can make more money with less education. The trades industry,
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
kids can be funneled in immediately.
So that's part of the reason why I partner with WSU Tech, because Again, a lot of programs and things, go to college, and everybody's just not coming here. I know a lot of people who have trades and make more money than I do.
That's right.
I mean, if they paid me just upon good looks, then I probably would do it, right? But they don't, No, absolutely. For me, to be honest with you, I wasn't a great student. It was just, I call it divine providence that got me to where I was at. But personality wise, I probably would be better off being in a trade. I don't do office politics too well. And so I do advocate for that. I think that that's one of the, you brought up a great point. That's one of the brain drains. If you want to send your kid to a mentorship program that's going to take pictures and go to college visits, fine. I'll be happy to refer you. If you want to mentor, and again, we don't do any blanket mentoring. If a kid comes to my program, the first thing I do is give them an aptitude test. The second thing I do is give them a personality test. And the third thing I do is meet with all the stakeholders who are involved in this children's life, whether it's clergy, whether it's coaches, whether it's parents, and I create what's called a personal success plan. This personal success plan allows all the stakeholders to view this document so that you know exactly what this child is working on. Not, you're hearing this from this person, you're hearing this from this person, you know directly, this is what you should be working on.
That's good. Do you incorporate the parents into this program?
Absolutely, because they have to be a stakeholder in this. That is the determining factor. From working in the school district, children whose parents are active excel way more. So, I'm on the parents' head too, because my personal opinion is that if your kid is harassing other kids in the community, you're part of the problem. You need to get your kids together.
One more question.
What's your fee schedule? How much does it cost?
So there's 3 different courses. They're 10 weeks. There's $40 a week or $400 for the course. The private mentorship is only $200 a month. That's it. So it's really affordable. There are also group discounts and there are payment arrangements available for parents too. If you'd like to sponsor a kid, feel free to do that.
So how much? When you say sponsor, how much? I mean, no, how much is it, would that parent pay for that child?
So it depends on how many children they have, but say, for example, they have one child, there's no obligation to keep going. If I'm not doing a good job, get rid of me. The one-on-one mentorship will be $200 a month.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I'm passing passing sheet around. If you need a flyer, if you'd like to meet with me, I will reach out to you. Thank you guys for your time. Thank you. Yes, I.
Cameron passing out more
There's
flyers.
a sign sheet, sign-in sheet.
Before I'm speaking as a him, I realize I'm voice is the All right, our next presentation, I know many of you are interested in, I've heard from folks asking about our public housing. So
Yeah.
Sarah is here and she will be talking about that. So I don't know how long the presentation is. Let's try to work to let the presentation happen. And then let's ask questions. If not, it extends everything and she may have more good information to share and we don't get through all of it. So if you have pens and paper, try to write those questions down so you don't forget them. And we can do a really good Q&A.
Thank you so much. I'm Sarah Gooding. I'm the Real Property Section Manager with Housing and Community Services. And we have a lot of activity going on in District 1 right now. As Councilmember said, we are the team over the public housing units and over the sale of those units. And one of our big goals with that is to try to really breathe life back into some of the areas that have slowly become less friendly as we work toward repositioning those houses. So I'm actually going to turn the presentation over to Roger. We did try to keep it pretty short. And one other thing I want to share with y'all is that we try to be very responsive to feedback, to questions we're receiving. And so we both will be available to take questions once Roger finishes the presentation. And glad to provide updates on both the sale of public housing units directly into the market and then the Affordable Housing Fund, which Roger is going to share a little bit more about here now.
Thank you, Sarah. As Sarah mentioned, I'm Roger Verizon, city employee for 28 years. I manage the northeast area of Lee County. We're here to discuss the affordable housing plan Cameron, if you don't mind doing some slides. Oh, or okay, I will.
All right.
Okay. The Affordable Housing Fund prioritizes projects using the existing public housing. Those in the Northeast, Ash Pike, Minnesota. Sure. Funds will be awarded to projects within a quarter mile of the two designated rental areas. Renewal areas. All units purchased and or rehabilitated through the Affordable Housing Fund must utilize the Affordable Housing Fund. That means they must be affordable. Next slide, please. The goal of the fund is to improve quality existing housing stocks, which are the public housing units, while expanding the affordability housing options and promoting neighborhood stability in the Wichita. This was developed in response to community feedback out of the COVID camp, similar to what the grant. Community feedback prioritizes affordable housing. Most everybody knows, you don't know. Next slide. Fund focuses heavily on minority communities, incorporates equity throughout the program. Includes a scoring preference to women-owned, or disadvantaged businesses. Council approved the Affordable Housing Review Board, which we do have one member here today, Don Todd. Members should represent the diversity of the community and include minority community leaders. Design, we have 57 vacant units marketed in 2 concentrated areas, 41 units in the Northeast Wichita, and 16 units in the Southwest Wichita. By the 66 units approved of disposition sale. 9 in those 2 areas are occupied at this time, and relocation plans are in process. Project opportunity covers quarter mile surrounding the areas. So not only would a public housing unit qualify for the fund, other units within that quarter mile will qualify for that fund. Strategic opportunity, it will test the impact of the investment in those 2 neighborhoods. Northeast. As you can see, the Northeast advancement areas and the Southwest, as I stated, the Northeast is Minnesota SIDAC. Southwest is St. Clair and Haskell area. If you're not familiar with it, it's around Pawnee and Meridian. Those are all public housing units. The numbers inside the boxes represent bedroom sizes. They range from 2 bedrooms to probably 6 bedrooms. About those 2 developments. Next slide, please. This is the quarter miles expanded area. The blue is the Ash Pike, Minnesota. Red is the Haskell St. Clair. So any houses within that quarter mile could qualify. There's a couple program phases. Renovation phase, applicants should be professionals. Those awarded contracts must demonstrate experience rehabilitating single family units and working with comparable government funding sources, either local, state, or federal. Opportunity phase, income qualified home buyers or renters will apply directly to professional organizations that were awarded contracts. Renovation phase begins in spring this year. Units will be sold by request for proposal. They will be able to request up to $40,000 per unit for the rehabilitation. or it could be less depending on what's deemed necessary. 2.7 million is made available. Request for proposal. 66. Next slide, please. Professionals applying must present their vision of how the proposed project will provide overall neighborhood and community benefit. Provide comprehensive per unit specs for the rehabilitation to justify the funding. Contracts will be awarded on a unit by unit basis. And scoring bonuses will be awarded for projects using 6 or more public housing units. Next slide, please. Proposal should designate whether outcomes for homeownership or rental end user. 16 project-based vouchers are available to the affordable housing. All units must be renovated within 1 year. They also must provide permanent marketing required. Professionals are responsible for securing income qualified home buyers or renters. Income qualified home buyers and renters begins with renovation contracts awarded late this year. Individuals may apply directly through professionals of, individuals may apply directly through professionals to purchase or rent renovated. The city will post and market information to make those individuals for the housing opportunities. Next slide. Home ownership phase, low to moderate income households and families with annual income growth of 80% of the area median income in the family size will be eligible for use for home ownership projects. Home buyers will be required to utilize the city's down payment assistance, which will pay up to 20% down from 2,000. It's a 0% loan, and 50% is forgivable after the family is resided in the home. Next slide, please. Rentals, as I stated earlier, there are 16 project-based vouchers available to assist households at or below 50% of the area median. Other specifics may be based on proposals. Individuals must apply for housing to the professionals and organizations. Here are the in 2024 income limit versus basically looking at the 50%. So one person can make up to 32,000. Family of 8, 60,400. Excellent. Do we have any questions?
I got a question, Vic.
She's my backer.
This is wonderful. So kind of break it down in layman's terms. So it sounds like you have 3 pieces to this. So with your last piece, so you're saying you've got this pot of money, and then a person who does rehab on homes, they can then submit application for that 40. And then if they are awarded that, then I, who's looking for a place to rent or buy, I submit my application to them.
Mhm.
And then, so, and you said something about the city at the end. So where do they come in helping with that down payment?
The city has a down payment program. And Sarah can speak more to that. We'll pay up to 20% and 2,000 per.
So really, this is a combination of a few different programs that have historically been offered. We wanted to deliberately break it down. We've had a lot of people, as we've had media interest about it, ask, how do I live in those homes? And so that's why we wanted to be very clear. It is a 2-phase process. where the first phase is really for professionals who work within that renovation and housing development space. And then the second phase is for the end users who will live in those homes. So the city will award the contracts to purchase the homes to the professionals who apply and are awarded those opportunities. They'll provide that funding as well, up to 40,000 per unit. There is a 12% developer fee available within that helps the developers to pay for their time and efforts in the project. But ultimately, we're looking at end beneficiaries. The goal is about 75% home ownership and about 25% rental between all 57 units available. And as you were saying, at the end, anyone pursuing home ownership will need to apply for the city's down payment assistance program. So basically, we come in with up to 20% down on that final unit. So we can take off that top part that pushes a home buyer into private mortgage insurance and other costs. That's also our mechanism for ensuring that these are affordable for at least 10 years, which meets our federal funding
And
provisions.
so when do I, the person wanting to live in the home, when do I contact you at the same time I'm submitting application to the developer?
That's actually part of the developer's duty.
Okay,
So we will provide information on the developers that are awarded contracts. So that information will be on our website once contracts are awarded, as well as the developers will be responsible for monitoring that. Applicants will apply directly to those companies, those firms, but then those firms will work with the city. Basically, they work with the applicant to go through credit counseling, home buyer assistance, working to get a primary mortgage. And then they contact the city with that preliminary qualification. We do our underwriting for our side of things. And so we are kind of looped in at the beginning and again at the end, but applicants will work directly with those who are awarded the contracts to secure that end benefit. So great questions. Thank you. I think I saw this one first and we'll keep going across.
Right, so I have a few questions. I'm still a little unclear how these developers, now there's up to 40,000 per unit, right? And then the 12%, so they can spend 40,000. I guess my concern here is quality, right? These folks, whoever you pick, obviously they're gonna wanna make a profit, right? And so they make a profit, I guess, on the sale.
The 12% is their authorized profit.
So the most they can make on all of this work is $4,800, if it's 4,000.
Depending on
If it's 40,000.
So it's a little more complex. This is modeled after our home investment partnerships, housing development loan program that we operate routinely. We do a 10% developer fee within those new builds. And I know I'm getting really technical here, but basically, the developer will be responsible for showing their entire funding stack that's proposed to purchase the unit and do the renovation. Within that, we are doing a 12%, not on the purchase fee for the unit, but on the other related construction costs. And so they will need to build that in. It's gonna take sharp pencils, honestly, to make it work. And on the inside, we will be reviewing proposed scope of work, proposed specs, because we want to make sure that end users are getting a safe, healthy, and affordable house, not something where they come in, do pretty finishes, and leave critical systems. So within the project team, we do have that expertise to review. We're pulling the whole real property section in for this, and that includes people who work within the construction area, people who work within more of the grants financing. So we'll have a broad project team reviewing what's proposed.
So back to quality, then are you providing like mandates? It has to be whether you're picking cabinets or something, because things can fall apart quickly, right? And I appreciate that you're focused on important things like foundation and electrical and plumbing and all of that. But then there's also, then the cabinets start falling off the wall or the flooring starts coming up. Are there minimum specs that have been developed so that you can have a better assurance of controlling quality?
We don't have specific specs that we've developed. If you give me just a moment, I'm actually editing my contract here this morning as we go. So that's what I'm working on here in the corner. But I can find the language that is required within that.
Yeah, well, okay, but without defined specs, then I think there's risk for poor quality in order to maximize profit, would be my statement on that. And then, so 16 are gonna be voucher, so that's really 27% of the 57 vacant units, but I'm glad to know then that others a little less than 75%, they must be sold. So those developers cannot hang on to them as rentals, right?
Right, so the breakdown, we want to be soft on that 25, it's not necessarily going to be exactly that. We have, the home buyer is really our primary hope. With the project, we have approximately 16 project-based vouchers that we can allocate. Developers could come in and propose LIHTC, low-income housing tax credits. Honestly, the timeline by which we have to have contracts developed is extremely tight for other types of rental proposals. So our assumption is that we'll be approximately that 25-75 home buyer to rental breakdown in that. Actually, I think we have a couple questions over here and then I'll leave back around, so.
Mine was, is there a maximum price that you consider affordable? What price range are we talking and selling them at?
I'm trying to think right off, basically we do specify they must be modest in nature and affordable to income qualified. If we can go back a slide, we'll show the price point that looks like. We are working within a lot of different frameworks. So for a home buyer, the home buyer side of the program can go up to this 80% area median. So if we're looking at a family of 4, it is going to have to be affordable to them under current interest rates at an income of not to exceed 73,200. So we're not looking at coming in and doing custom finishes or high end. We're really looking at the critical systems within it. We'll probably need to do some math to really give some guidance, and that may be part of our proposal process and responses to questions we receive as well. But I think the hope is that a lot of these would come in still very, very affordable and competitive in the scope of the whole market right now. Where right now, a new build without subsidy is coming in close to $250,000 at a minimum.
Even if you make 73,000, a third, you can afford to spend a third of your income, say, for housing according to the regulations. What if you've got $90,000 in student loans?
That would be a consideration in the underwriting, both for the primary mortgage and for our underwriting. Question here.
Yeah, so a little bit of piggyback. These areas in the house, which you've had them over here off 25th and Pye and some of those, you've had them quite a while in here. And so there's surely been a market study of the current conditions or appraisal to go out with here, even for the seller in here. So just top of your head, a 3-bedroom, and because most of that's kind of in the middle of the 3-bedroom in here in that area, comparables to those, and what would those be selling for? Thank you.
I don't have that current research. I think at the moment, if I'm remembering right, the current appraisal value of that group is somewhere in the low 40s. I have it in a different presentation, not this.
House sales for $40,000.
That is the current sales price that the city will be selling. Not, I mean, it is different per unit. I think I've seen from the 20,000s up through higher in the southwest area. I don't truly know.
I guess when I see this affordable housing, you talk about the upper ends, anyway, they're selling for. So in that area here, if I'm estimating, guessing in here that, okay, the house, will they sell for more than 90,000?
Some of them potentially.
So
I think the southwest area, we have some that have higher appraisal values, 6-bedroom units.
I'm talking about this area, that's what I'm looking at.
This area. Some of it is just gonna depend on what it takes to do the work. So we basically, if a home sells from the city for say 43,000, the developer could apply for up to 40,000 from the Affordable Housing Fund. They need to bring private financing as well.
But you also say that he needs to keep it affordable. even on his price that he's gonna sell. So if I go to a contract and says, you know, I like this house over here, and I think you can get it from the city for like $40,000-$50,000 this year. Do some upkeep, little things to it in here. What would you be looking to sell it to me for? So I know if I see you go apply.
Truly, that will be part of the application process.
But is it a cap but for him in that area?
There's not necessarily, that's part of,
You could ask 200,000?
no.
If there's no cap, you
Yeah,
can't.
that-
Yeah.
I mean, they can ask, but that is part of the Affordable Housing Review Board's duty to
You need
to look
you need to
through
put a
which
slide in
are
there for
most
that.
advantageous.
You need some kind of slide in there for that, you know, that if you see a house over there and cap on it in here, even for that area, for 3-bedroom in here, more affordable for that area, it'd be no more than $150,000. You need to publish that, so he know he's not getting shafted by the other.
Truly, developers are gonna have to work within its height framework.
The buyer, we got to know if I can work with him. That's what I'm saying. I need to know that he's not shafting me in what we're doing.
And that information will be part of the proposal process, what their proposed entail. Now, a question from John.
If I have a young couple that's interested in a home ownership, is there a number I can call to put me together with someone that can help counsel me through this whole process? Do they call a realtor? Or do they just call you, or how does all this, I mean, what do they do? I mean, call you?
We are actually not able to authorize any sort of home related counseling. What I would encourage people to do is if they're interested in potentially being a home buyer, potentially reach out to a realtor or their private lender to begin the conversation to find out what they're gonna need. Once we award contracts, they'll have developers.
If you need for a counselor, someone that can help them follow through with all these steps. This is not for someone that doesn't have some training doing.
And that is beyond the scope of what we're allowed to do as city employees.
So I just want to echo, I wonder if there's an opportunity for the city to partner with people who you know does that work, even though it's not within the direct scope of your work. I think you need to understand the lingo and even the language is confusing for someone who doesn't understand this process. But then two, you had a slide up about when you put out RFPs and the requirements, and I think I'm understanding this is like made possible through federal funds, which I know comes with a lot of red tape and compliance. But then my question, considering the communities that you all are wanting to renovate in, how does that impact supplier diversity when you talk about the developers who are going to be able to come in and do this work? What implications does that have on the folks who look like the community, who are qualified to do this, being able to actually propose a bid and be successful? And what are you all doing to make outreach? I know Councilman Johnson does a good job sharing like the bids process and when it's open, but what are you all doing to reach those folks who look like this community and are skilled to help with the renovations?
That is actually one of the big areas around which this whole program was developed, is intentional opportunity for the minority developers to reasonably participate. You go back to, I think it was our second or third slide, and we talk about basically the recognition that the COVID pandemic hit minority, lower income communities extremely hard in the area of housing. And so one of the things, maybe one more, this one, okay. So we do have a scoring preference within the request for proposal for, the city does emerging and disadvantaged business enterprises. Everything through federal and HUD funds considers minority and women's businesses, or minority and women-owned businesses. And so there is you are or you aren't one of those 4 categories. And if you are, you get 5 points awarded.
Perfect.
Out of 100 total regular points. There is also a scoring bonus above those 100 points for bulk usage of more public housing units. But it is a 5% advantage for anybody who meets one of those criteria.
So when you send out this information, you list all the people that are on the.
We can.
So it makes sense, because otherwise we don't know.
And then I was gonna say, in terms of notification, we have been working since before I arrived at the city in 2022 to build a list of everybody who is interested in housing opportunities who's requested notification. So when this proposal goes out, that will go out to all of those entities. We also, the media has had a lot of attention on housing recently, and so we are also working very hard to keep interest in that in the media, so that it is widely made aware throughout the community. So any sharing of information that can be done through anybody who's here, and again, Councilmember Johnson does a great job keeping things shared with the community. We are relying on those primary and secondary opportunities.
So, go ahead.
The one thing I'm not hearing, and maybe it's a different department or partnering with someone else, but during the qualification process, does it happen in the qualification process, or what about people that are maybe new homeowners or younger homeowners, and they don't know about what it takes to have a home and do maintenance on a house?
Yep.
And if you can't afford to have somebody come in every time something goes wrong, because I know I can't, but I have had younger friends that would not qualify for a program like this, that have purchased a house. I get a call from them like, who do you know of a plumber? I'm like, what do you need a plumber for? Well, my garbage disposal won't run. I said, did you use the wrench? What's a wrench? I'm like, oh my gosh, so there's $150, $300 for a plumber to come out for something that the homeowner, if they're informed, could easily do themselves. And so it concerns me if we're also not addressing, trying to make sure that people are going to be successful. And, a cabinet is starting to come loose, take a screwdriver and tighten it up, rather than not knowing what to do potentially. And then you have a major issue with something falling apart in the house that maybe could have been prevented, or even some type of a program with an extended warranty program, so that for a number of so many years that there's assistance in, if there's things that are kind of happening, to help those homeowners know what to do, what's major, what's not major, and how to take care of some of those things. Because if they're not replacing everything, the renovation thing, it's like, well, you may have a leaky faucet at some point. You may have something like that. So what do you really need to do so that you enable them to be able to take care of that home?
Some of that is going to be covered in the home buyer counseling, but probably not. I don't know that it covers as much of the technical that you're describing. One of the things that when the city built the real property section, it actually includes a pathway of programs, including our home repair program, that can assist with major critical maintenance when something dies or is at the end of its useful life.
So is all that
There is that
information going to be provided within the context of this whole process?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, because there's a lot of little pieces that are out there that people are gonna have to
Some of
navigate.
those truly have to come from mentoring, from friendships in the community, things like that. I have lived my own journey doing the same kinds of things. The first time you call the plumber and they flip the switch and it costs you $90.
So
You
you're
learn
saying
real
there's no
fast.
warranty, then these won't come with a warranty? Is that what I'm
I
hearing?
believe we have a 1-year warranty on the basic.
Now, back to your maintenance issue, the homeownership aging program did develop a pamphlet or a book, the 3-ring binder, that covers water heaters, ground fault interrupter circuits, furnaces, just a schedule of maintenance for those items.
Okay.
And it was probably developed 10 or 15 years ago, and it's still relevant today.
Add a line for cottonwood fluff in your air conditioner on the outside.
You take a garden hose of that.
I get that, but we had friends from California, and she called crying because the air conditioner was down. I walked out and there was probably 2 inches thick on the thing, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. It
So-
covers that.
Okay.
So my question is, honestly, part of what you're saying is just part of home ownership. That's just how it is. So I don't think we really need to design a program to help somebody learn how to be a homeowner. You learn how to be a homeowner while you a homeowner. So, but my question is, do I have to purchase one of the city houses to be in this program? Or can I have houses that might not be one of the houses from the city that can be incorporated into the program?
Great question, thank you. If we can go back to the slide that has.
That's question number one.
Kind of circles around the areas. So this program is really prioritizing use of the existing public housing units. But any unit that falls within those. Kind of
Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's little. But if somebody is interested in basically. It is a two-part process. This is not something where a current homeowner is gonna be a direct beneficiary. But if somebody has a rental property that they want to run through this process that is within that area, that would be eligible. If somebody, it would be a lesser component. But if somebody has a vacant lot and wants to propose a build within that quarter-mile area, that could be done. I will say that the funding available for a new build through this program is not equivalent to the funding available in our standard program. But there are some opportunities for expanded work within things that are within a quarter mile of the primary areas.
Second question.
I have a question back here, one back here, and then I have a list here. So one, two, and then I'll try to get this list.
I need to
Oops,
ask my
one,
second
two, three, and then the list. So.
Okay, I guess I'm one, I don't know.
Sure,
We'll go
you're
for
one.
But my question, I was listening at what we were saying about what she was saying. I know a lot of young homeowners, they don't know. And yes, you learn as you go, but it would be more efficient and more productive to have a 1 hour, 2 hour class that says, this is what you're gonna have to face as a homeowner. Hand them the book, but explain to them, because they're used to calling the landlord. So it's a transition, and they're going to need of understanding what homeownership really means.
I think, our maintenance department, if they run into a problem that they don't know how to fix, you know, either electrical, plumbing, AC, they'll Google. Google the issue.
Everybody don't know how to Google.
But
And not only that, they need to understand the cost going forward. That this, we help you get this house, but if we not gonna help you fix this house. So they need to understand that going into the process.
And a
And
lot
then-
of that is really contingent on the developer component. We're looking for developers, professional organizations who work within this space, who can really provide that resources and counseling.
Well, it sounds like you're putting the whole program in the developer's hands.
A lot of
My-
it is.
My question is, what if you just wanted to buy it yourself? You're only selling these to developers?
These are developers only. We do have other public housing units for sale on the open market. And so with that, taken aside there, with that, if somebody purchases one of the other units on the open market, then really everything is going to be theirs to look at, to do. We have built the home repair program, so it has a program priority for anybody who is an owner occupant of a former public housing unit. So if you were to purchase one of the ones that we have available in open houses on Sundays directly from the city, and if you income qualified, you could apply for home repair and get assistance with some of the maintenance and updates that we know are needed. So we tried to do that, so there is, this opportunity is its own thing, this has the down payment assistance baked in. On the open market, there is home repair available to help.
she's,
Okay, let's
she's
see.
had her hand up quite a while.
Yeah, I think so, we got 1 and 2, so.
So just for clarity, there's gonna be like a phase 1 where the developers go out, buy all of the houses, they fix it up. Phase 2 would be us contacting the developers to purchase the houses or rent out the houses.
Yes.
And when it comes to purchasing the houses, you have help that will help us be able to purchase the houses.
Yes.
And how much did you say you will help with that?
Up to 20%.
Okay.
So
For the
if
down
somebody is a lot of that final underwriting will be based on the household income versus the purchase price. In the end, homeownership is considered affordable at up to 31% of that household's income. And so we're looking to assist with something that brings monthly payments so that they're between 25 and 31% of the income. And I know we're getting really technical with numbers, but yes, every home buyer assisted through this program in the end will have the down payment assistance as a component. So actually, one of the questions I have on this sheet is who is actually buying the house? The answer is it sells twice. First, it sells to the professional developer, and in the end, for a home buyer, it sells again to the home buyer. The developer cannot be the end user for a home ownership. For a rental, they're gonna have to prove that they're qualified to operate that rental long-term. But for a home buyer, the developer owns it for the time it takes to renovate and then to sell it again to the home buyer.
So with it being, you're trying to help the low income community. The low income community tends to have a lot more debt than
Thank
other
you.
communities. And so when you say 31% of their income, that is not including their, the money that they're already paying out for debt.
That's correct.
So then
Our
that makes it unaffordable for a low income household because their debt tends to keep them from buying a house anyways.
So part of why we're talking about this now is because we're probably 9 months to a year out from any of these being available for sale. So we would encourage anyone who is interested in being a home buyer in the end to go ahead and look at what does it take to get debt in order. The truth is we can't assist every situation. We underwrite so that somebody's debt to income is no more than 43% of their income. And those are just our HUD-based criteria. We can't help every situation, but we are trying to create opportunity for what we can do.
But it
I know I had a
seems,
question
it
about you.
seems like you should have started with the community years ago if this was in the plans, because it takes longer than a year to get rid of debt.
And this did begin in 2021, I think, was when a lot of the community feedback
Well,
was.
so the original plan was 2019, and it was to renovate and keep all of these houses. So the challenge that we've had is we've had to resubmit plans 3 times to HUD to get approved. So it's not that we didn't want to do community engagement, it's HUD continued to say no to everything we were trying to do to keep our public housing. Then we had to say we were gonna sell it, and then they have to approve, and they have to approve any set of houses that we sell. So that's really the challenge. It's not we didn't want to talk to the community about doing this. Because even with community input, this is all federal. It's federal regulations. You can say you want something. If the federal government will allow it, it's not gonna happen.
They just
So
gonna do what they gonna do.
And even a lot of the program ideas and options that we wish we could offer, our sole funding source for most of this is federal. And so we are limited by what we can and can't do and have to rely on community organizations and nonprofits and others to fill in the gaps of what our funding does.
With
not.
that being said, the Urban League does have different different programs that teaches about home ownership, and they do it for free. So it would be great to partner with them to send people there.
I've actually just been working with Tisha on some different opportunities. And I presented a week or so ago at one of her trainings, and so that is a partnership we're very open to. You in the back, I know you've been very patient.
That's, no worries. One comment, for those of you that are interested, on the city's website, besides these homes that they're talking about, the homes that are for sale, there is a list of the properties that are for sale, and they encourage you to talk to your realtor, but then they also list the city contact. So there you do have somebody that you can reach out to for questions.
Yes.
The question that I have, are any of these homes, particularly the larger homes, are any of them zoned for like residential care, assisted living, or could they be?
I think with these, that would not be an eligible option.
Okay.
Other areas, it might be possible, but this program is pretty narrow and what I can't do.
So your program rules deny it because the state of Kansas says that if the home is usable, somebody could put in an 8-person care facility.
No, that's a good question. That's my question. That's what I need to know.
So I have one last question.
But I was just concerned about, is it a possibility that that area could become gentrified because of what she was saying? Lack of credit worthiness on a lot of the community's part.
Right now, we only have 2 families in the northeast area occupants. 2 tenants, the rest of them,
And how long have they been vacant?
since we closed down the wait list in, I think, 2018. So 2018.
Part of why we are pairing the funding opportunity is because the long-term vacant unit houses are meant to be lived in. And we know that there is that need. We know that they are not ready to go for general home buyers as they are. And so the Affordable Housing Fund offered a great opportunity to strategically pair that money with the rehab opportunities.
Have you assessed how many dollars it's going to take to rehab most of those houses with them being vacant for so long?
Back in 2019 or early 2020, they did have a capital needs assessment. Of course, those numbers have probably changed with inflation.
And what were those numbers then?
They varied from each unit.
That was where the approximately 40,000 came from.
At the high end? So now we're looking at probably 55, 60.
And that is where developers may need to bring some additional capital from other sources, and the end sales prices will reflect.
And that's where we have problem. Now the house is no longer affordable. Like Giselle was saying, the income to debt ratio is going to be a problem. Because now that house is gonna be $175,000 or more. That's not affordable for this community.
And that's where the Affordable Housing Review Board will review scopes for each proposal and determine which proposal is most advantageous for the community. So if we got a proposal for $175,000 for a home that's currently valued at 40, we're probably, the board may determine that is not reasonable, affordable, and advantageous.
I mean, after repair value, that's what the developer is going to be working on, the after repair value. They're not gonna be their investment total. So that's going to bring a house that's 175,000 or more.
Yeah.
I've been looking at these houses myself. I live over there.
That's what I was looking at. I pulled up one of
So
them
that is not going to be.
that's owned by the city, and it's $61,000.
That's right.
It's
And
city
then,
owns it's at $61,000 now.
and then you're selling properties that already have Raytheon devices on them at almost $100,000. I don't see how this is helping.
Yeah, that house will end up being $150,000 home
Easy,
by the time it sells.
easy.
And it's one of those addresses.
So here's the question I have. If I'm going in as a developer and purchasing several of these houses, the city's requiring me to pay the minimum appraisal value, is that correct? Because if they can be bought right, I can be the bank. I mean, we can solve this stuff.
Yeah.
I can carry the note if they can be bought right. And you pay direct just on contract. So now somebody who's not qualified becomes qualified because I decided they qualify.
But you still gonna want your $175,000.
I'm not selling for $175,000. If it can be bought right and rehab right, there's your answer right there.
We are looking for developers who are gonna thread that needle.
Right.
They're gonna get what they need out of it, but I've seen faces fall in the development community when we talk about the 12% of construction costs. Because it's a narrow margin. This is not a get rich quick.
So the critical thing is for me, as a developer who built and bought houses in this community for 20 years and a general contractor, can I buy these at a right price point that I can go in and do this? Because if I can buy them at a right price point and go in and do this, I can carry the loan.
And I'll be honest, most of the parcels that have sold so far, most of the ones that are under contract are coming in right at or just above that fair market appraisal value. This is not the city, I mean, everything we get goes back into our disposition costs, and then proceeds actually roll forward into future affordable housing opportunities. But for the most part, we are not seeing offers come in high above that amount. I do have a couple questions on this paper as well. So basically, somebody says, who sets the purchase price when finished? That will be part of the developer's proposal, and that will be part of the Affordable Housing Review Board's determination in what is reasonable in awarding contracts. I've got a question for if the funds are being given to the developers to fix the house, the funds will actually be paid out on a reimbursement basis. And so the developer will need to do a month's worth of work, submit an invoice and full backup documentation of expenses. We will supervise the site, we will review the progress, and then we will authorize that payment as a reimbursement. We will also hold the developer fee until the home is closed or until the end uses are secured. And so they'll receive the funds along the way. One question says, when it's time to sell the house, who gets the money, the city or the developer? And based on our models, basically the developer is not allowed to take away proceeds beyond their development fee. So the developer will have the opportunity to recoup any loans they've taken out, any capital needed for the purchase, plus the developer fee, but that will be their takeaway. I think in a model I saw that projected 100,000 for a sales price, the developer came away with 4,000 and some odd in their fee, and the city came away with about 4,200 returning to the Affordable Housing Fund, which my understanding is once it returns, we can put it back into another project. So it's complex. And then the final question I have is, does the home buyer have to pay the price set by the developer or the city? And I believe that that price will be, it's typically determined at the front. Now, if we had completely unexpected change orders, we could change contracts, but that price will be regulated throughout. So I know you've been moderating questions. Do we have time for any more, or are we coming to a close?
Yeah, we can do some more questions.
Yes,
You said there may be a warranty. I mean, there's definitely a 1-year warranty. Okay, definitely.
that is standard.
Okay, terrific, thanks.
Yeah.
When you're talking about 20% for the down payment, are you talking 20% of the required down payment or 20% of the purchase price?
20% of the purchase price. So basically, the program design is that typically if you owe more than 80% of the home's value, the bank is going to want private mortgage insurance. And so the design of the program is to help with that top 20% that can be a little more volatile in the market, take it down so that they only owe 80%. That assistance is secured with a mortgage. And so that mortgage is due upon sale or transfer. If somebody sells or transfers within 10 years, they will repay that full amount, but at least they had the assistance, they have the stability. If they live in the house for more than 10 years, half is forgiven. And then the remaining balance, hopefully they get to live in the home for a long time. But the remaining balance is paid upon sale or transfer.
And these just have to be restored to builder's code, is that correct?
I believe so.
Well,
And
you know, a lot of these are vacant, so yeah, you'll pull in
The permit,
permits, things like that, they'll have to pass.
okay, as long as it passes the codes, it's good. There's no other added things that are specific for this program, is that
that will
correct?
be basic. So
Okay,
a developer could propose more, but then we get into questions of what is actually necessary, what is affordable.
right,
But to code is gonna be baseline.
And you,
And again, we're very aware of the maintenance things that are needed, so we will have individuals within our department who are very familiar with the units, reviewing specs to make sure that those things are being addressed.
My concern is, since this has so many components, and this is basically to protect the end person, the person that will be buying the house. So if a homeowner needs some guidance on how all of this works, do they go to the city with a particular thing? The reason why I'm asking, because I was involved in the home ownership thing, and I definitely think the contractor gave me bad information, plus the realtor gave me bad information. So how do people, the end person ensures that they are getting the correct information as to what, one, they qualify for, what is gonna be refunded or not refunded, forgiven back in a certain amount of years? How do they guarantee that they are getting correct information. So I wouldn't trust the contractor and I wouldn't trust the realtor to give you what is really supposed to be going on through this program.
I agree. Because it's your program.
Because one, they just wanna sell. When it comes down to it, they wanna sell, so.
Now, let me
Who's
ask.
gonna be the nonpartisan person that gives them, or is it even gonna be written down on a piece of paper that this is your responsibility, this is not your
It
responsibility?
is all in the closing paperwork.
Well,
One
no,
of the
but
things we
but-
have not done well on as the city is actually having somebody present at closing to walk through that. And
Well-
that is a customer service issue that I'm
And-
hoping to address.
As far as experience that I had, I didn't see any closing work until I got there. And it was a ton of paper, and you say, sign here, sign here. I should have went through all them documents before they called me up and told me I need to be there the next day to sign.
A lot of that really is the responsibility of the contractor developer.
I'm-
And it is also the responsibility of the home buyer training force. Those are areas outside of what we are.
I
able to
guarantee
do.
you, they didn't give me any type of that type of information. And I know I never saw the closing sheet until that day, and I literally had one day, oh, you need to be here, sign your closing. And so that's my concern, is there anything in place to prevent that?
That is really outside of what we can do.
Even my success.
Cameron,
I have a question for the residents that are here. Will you be informing residents that some of these houses were built on land that was affected by the toxic waste spill?
I believe that everything we have in our paperwork outlines all the environmental, everything that would be disclosed.
So it states that it's been a brownfield, because all those homes are brown,
They
every
are.
last one of them.
We'd have to check the environmental report. You know,
Already did, go
one
ahead.
on each one.
The answer should have been.
Yeah, that whole area is brown.
That should impact price. I mean, nobody should live in it actually, but.
It's a Superfund site that it's currently trying to be cleaned up.
But within
So
that.
that site is not the Superfund site. The
No.
Superfund site is across the.
Well,
That
it's,
site has not
so it's
identified.
affected by the Superfund
No,
site.
it's all different. The Superfund site was the refinery, which has different types.
Right.
This was UP and also the sludge pump. It's two different sites. And
It's,
they have identified who actually did it. So it's not the Superfund site, but it is contaminated groundwater and soil. That's the difference. It's confusing because the Superfund site is so close. But it's the Superfund site and this.
right, and
And rather than
that
just part of
particular
every
site
part of the
is a brownfield. It's not a Superfund anymore, but it is a brown.
And HUD requires an environmental review of each of these houses and properties. So that had to be done before this could even go.
that had to be done to be able to sell them as part of our preliminary disposition. Another one will have to be done before any project can proceed in terms of renovation. And this is also required as part of the down payment assistance. We work within a tight network of a lot of federal funds. John,
No, here, if he has a prospective buyer, could he come in and work in residential rehabilitation loan under HUD's 203K program?
that would probably be a really good option for the public housing units being sold outside of this plan.
He wouldn't work here.
This one, because we're pairing the affordable housing assistance.
What was the other program you mentioned?
So we're actually selling 352 units.
Right.
This encompasses, we've been approved to sell 66 within this plan. We have 57 that are currently vacant and will be part of this first phase. So we have, if you go to our economic development, then real estate, they have a listing of city homes currently for sale. And so that would be a good pairing for anything that is outside of.
The rest of those are on the open. But still, the minimum buy-in is minimum appraisal.
Yes, and that is based on what HUD has allowed. So that is not something we as staff can waive. We get a lot of requests for it.
Right.
Yes.
So I just want to make a comment, and I don't know how or where it would have to be changed, but I feel like just that 5% bump that whether women-owned or underrepresented minority-owned businesses, get in this project and perhaps other city projects, I think that 5% is pretty low. And where, at what point, I mean, is that citywide? I mean, how would that have to be changed in the future? Because my guess is it can't be changed for this project, but I still feel like 5% is just too low.
It's a pretty standard number. I think it's something that we could have looked at, but we were probably too late right now. And it's designed to be a bump, but not to override qualifications and things like that. One of the things I really do want to reiterate is this project, if somebody only has contractor experience, but does not have experience working within this kind of funding, we recommend partnerships. Now, if a member of a partnership and they call it EBDB, maybe weeby, if they were within those classifications, that bump would apply to the partnership. But we want to make sure somebody who is just a contractor, no past experience, is gonna want to partner with somebody else who does have that experience with this type of funding. And so that can also be met and achieved through partnerships and opportunities.
Do you have statistics on how much that 5% has helped?
I don't.
I think that would be interesting for the community to know, just in general, because I don't know, just sitting here uninformed, I feel like still everything goes to predominantly white organizations. I might be wrong.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
The challenge is those who can do the program. I like the idea that we can do partnerships. That helps. The challenge though with the partnership is if the pot is only divvied up about $4,000, that's not very much incentive for me to risk my company. And then I've got to deal with a year's worth of follow-up maintenance. If something happens in this house, one thing go wrong and I'm losing money. And that's what has kept me kind of out of that, because the cost to risk ratio is just too long.
The city will cover that one.
Lonnie, you know.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. Thank you for the information. It's good to know anyway, whether you participate or not. I think it's good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
Let me see what that big area is.
Alrighty, that was some good information. Make sure that if you have future questions or know anyone who's interested, please reach out to Sarah. She does a really good job about getting that information out. Also, this may have happened before Sarah was here, but for those who are concerned about some of our minority-owned contractors, developers, we had a series of open houses down at the Advanced Learning Library. I was directly involved in that as well. I reached out to folks who they build houses, organizations. Those were attended pretty good. I'd say most of the room were folks of color, and we have anywhere from 25 to maybe 40 folks in there. So we've been working to get the information out. Again, some of the challenges are the qualifications. Some of this has been fluid, it's more solid now, but early on, just hearing from neighborhoods, wanted to make sure those houses got turned. That meant you had the skill set to be able to do that. As we looked at how quickly I wanted to see it happen, because I'm the one that gets most of the complaints, we kind of backed off of that in order to make sure it was available for other folks to be able to apply. So you have folks who may be able to do one house at a time. It may take them a while, but they shouldn't be excluded. That point was made to me. So there's been a balancing act with that, but it still is available. The rules may not be favorable to everybody, but again, I want to reiterate that was not our first plan. Our goal was to actually own all of those houses and deal with some of the housing issues that we have. Specifically, the fight I continue to have around housing choice vouchers and how that folks would have those are often discriminated against. We would have had 352 houses to say, here, you can live here. But unfortunately, HUD didn't see it that way. And this is one of those situations where local government may frustrate you, but we are frustrating federal government. on some of that. And this has come up a couple times when the council has went to DC. So we've talked about those things, and again, staff is doing a really good job putting this thing together the best they can to make it as accessible for everyone. We do recognize some of those challenges. With that, I'm gonna give you all a few updates. Happy to answer questions like we normally do. Yeah. Senator Costa-Doe left. She had to be somewhere, but she, I believe, is the most successful state senator, maybe in our state's history, is getting bills passed. So I think she's at number 20 or 21 now. She was able to get the revoked driver's license bill passed. Finally, she's been trying it for 5 years. I don't have all the details on that because I saw a few versions of it. I was going to give her an opportunity to tell you all. But that's amazing. We had the suspended driver's license issue. As you all know, it's over 100,000 people in Kansas who had suspended driver's license. For whatever reason, some of that was down. A lot of it was down. So revoked was the challenge. So if you had a revoked license, you wanted to be a good citizen anyway, you wanted to go to work, you might need to drop kids off at school, and you knew you were breaking the law every day by doing that, but you needed the money in order to pay it off. Right? So it was always an issue. So she was able to get that. I think now you'll have a quicker process to be able to get a special license that will allow you temporarily until everything's good. Our City of Wichita program called WARP, Wichita Area Restoration Program, was something that I pushed for starting in 2020, but we have it. It will help you with your suspended driver's license, getting that back. I think parts of that waive some of the additional fines and fees that you had on your original ticket to try to get you your license back, and then we can wrap it into that. I don't have those details yet because this just actually, the governor, I think, signed it last week or earlier this week. So we have to figure out how that works with work, but once we get that going, I will make sure we have a presentation here at the breakfast to let you know on that. As you all know, I think I said it last time, the building on Opportunity Drive that was the shelter was closed when we said it would be. That building is now in the middle of a sale to Wichita Habitat for Humanity. So again, it will not be a winter shelter. We kept our promise on that. That organization has built over 100 homes in the community already. They continue to build. They've got more going on. That will be their headquarters, depending on what happens on Tuesday. The council meeting. 29th and Grove contamination update. A few things have happened yesterday. Actually Thursday, as of Thursday on May 11th, we were gonna have a meeting here with Union Pacific to give updates. That is now canceled, so we're not having that meeting. Was able to encourage them to push that back further so we could have more time to let community know about that. Really in the updates, it's just gonna be the activities that they've done so far. So having the folks go out and do the well survey, door to door, trying to figure out if there's new wells here. What I don't think we've ever said is we were working on the city side to make sure if somebody identified that they had a well, there was no punishment, because you're not supposed to have that without a permit. So we worked to make sure if it was identified, we're not gonna come in and say you owe a bunch of money and you're in trouble. We just need to know because it's not safe. So they're out saying that they are doing door knocking in 2 different areas about that. Union Pacific will give an update on their proposed locations for these cleanup devices. I think they've shifted from 5 down to 3 that will handle larger areas so that there's not too much neighborhood impact. They will have all of that to present. Their new timeline on that, and again, I continue to push them to get these devices in the ground. So as we get community input and things start to get approved, my hope is that they get those devices in the ground. If not by this year, by sometime next year, because again, it's gonna take 10 years for those devices to clean up the groundwater. And every year that we wait just pushes us out even further. So I wanna see that get started as soon as possible. When they let me know the date on the next meeting, I'll let you all know. Of course, they're gonna make sure they reach out to the neighborhood in various ways with the canvassing team, probably some postcards and flyers as well. Brewer Center, everything looks great right now. So we think that we'll get our final yes from FEMA on June 3rd. So I was hoping to do a groundbreaking this month. That won't happen. But June 3rd, once we get our yes from FEMA, that means that the whole McAdams site is out of the floodplain. which means we can start building. City's already working on getting bids out there so we can start day one. Again, I want that project built as soon as possible. The other great thing about it, and I think we've already let the folks know, is across the canal, since we're removing that floodplain, they'll be out of the floodplain as well. So some of those public houses that we have will be out of the floodplain, as well as the folks who are over there who may have flood insurance. So that's money that they'll be able to save as well. I don't have the map for how far east that goes, but we think it's about 200 homes that could be removed from the floodplain. So excited about that. That and the pedestrian bridge will be kind of happening at the same time, and I hope done at the same time. So we'll have the new Brewer Center done, as well as the pedestrian bridge that will connect the neighborhood over. You'll see a lot of new artwork within that, and some of that road on the park side taken out, and a nice walking bike path will be put in over there, connect back to the pool. So looking forward to that. On the League 42 side, as you all know, we were going to put in some security measures. Some of that artwork and security is coming to us here pretty soon. I've seen some of it. It looks great. Not gonna ruin that surprise because I want everybody to smile the same way when you see it. But hopefully we'll have all of that done here in the next month or two as far as approval. And I know that we want to do a celebration this summer when the statue comes back. I'm hoping all of that's done at the same time so we can see it. But the security measures will block any vehicle access from being able to get up to the pavilion like we saw what happened. But it won't be ugly. It'll look really nice. You might have saw Sleepy Hollow in the news. Wesley was proposing to purchase that park. We had a great meeting on Tuesday. Highly attended, as you know, the tornado threats and all of that, and the rain and hail we saw in that room was packed. It was standing room only in that space. Sleepy Hollow did not want Wesley to purchase that park and go to parking lot and move it. Wesley has officially withdrawn their proposal. The neighborhood did have an impact on Wesley. We are working with them on a temporary parking solution if they can't figure out the first proposal that they had. And if we have to go with number two, we'll have another meeting to let them know what's going on. But Wesley did withdraw that. I received that email on yesterday. In the media here recently, there's been some talk about us using influencers to give information out. Some call it propaganda. If you look at any of those videos, one is about potholes. So yes, it's city propaganda about this is how you call and get a pothole filled. We're not trying to influence anyone's thoughts on that. It's literally getting information out. I don't know how many people will say there's a pothole and the city doesn't do anything about it. They don't realize that you could either shoot me an email or Cameron or your council member, or use the app we have, or there's a phone number. There's multiple ways to get that stuff addressed. We're trying to get the word out better and reach people where they are. Everything that we do doesn't always hit people where they are. So that was one strategy we came up with several years ago. I will say on council, because I don't always talk to every council member about ideas. I know I thought about that in 2020, just because of how we weren't connected. So what else can we do to get the word out? And there were people who had thousands of followers that if they brought up how to fill a pothole, we teach people. So we are doing that. But since it's out there, I know some people try to give it a bad name, but literally it's just how we do things. You'll probably see videos more about how we do streets, or pick those, or other ways that you can reach out to council or things like that. But it's not saying, hey, you should love us because we're great. This is how you get things done. Affordable housing wise is something that we continue to talk about outside of the presentation today. We're continuing to have conversations about whatever incentives we can use to get more affordable housing built. And we're looking at both affordable housing, which tends to have a subsidy, as well as housing affordability. We're trying to build houses that may be a little higher than what we're talking about today, somewhere in 150 to 225 range that not everybody can afford, but there is a large group of people that could move into that. You know, some of the lower costing housing. We're trying everything we can to everything we can think about to try to incentivize that. We had a duplex specials program that took the specials from 15 years to 20 years. I think that program's going to end because we didn't see the results that we thought. I haven't seen those yet, but that's just what I was told. But I've been asking about any other incentives we can use to keep housing affordability down. as well as our affordable housing stock. So we're hoping to see a lot of things. I am pushing to challenge this interpretation of state law that says we cannot require a percentage of affordable housing for any of our incentives. So if somebody wants to use the IRB or a housing project, we just had one of those downtown that came before council. The interpretation of state law says that we cannot say you need to have at least 20% affordable housing. I don't believe that. I've read that law several times. I know the sentence that we're using to justify that, but I also know that unless state law explicitly says it, that means you can do it. And the only thing explicit in the state law is around zoning. So if somebody wanted to rezone for MF18 multifamily to build apartments, we explicitly cannot say we'll only approve this if you have affordable housing units, because that's what the state law says. But it does not say if we incentivize it, we can't require it. So I'm gonna continue being loud about that to see if we can get that requirement in there. I think we can. I'm gonna keep talking to council. Looking pretty good on support right now. I have a little bit more work to do, but that is something that will be coming up. I want to try that, see if that helps. But I'm willing to try a lot of things. There's always the statement that folks say, well, if you have more housing units, the cost will come down. That's true. But if we're 40,000 units short, how long is it going to take to catch up to that? So that means the citizens have to wait 15, 20 years to get 40,000 units for those prices to drop. And I just don't think we should have to wait that long. So I'm gonna keep pushing on that. And then I want to encourage everybody to continue giving input on the budget. We'll have a budget presentation Monday night here at the District Advisory Board. Again, we'll be coming into some tough decisions coming up. And if we are not vocal about the things we care about, the thing that you care about may be the one getting cut. So make sure that you are in those decisions, whether it's at the District Advisory Board, whether it's at the council. Please let us know what's important. I use the same example, and now I'm actually hearing it a lot more. So in 2020, because we saw the pandemic recession that we had, street sweeping got cut all through the city. And I never heard anything about it. I knew it would probably annoy some people, but it was just one of those things that happened. But then we never heard a lot of support for bringing it back. But now what I hear from folks is, I only see the street sweeper once a year, or I haven't seen it in over a year. Or why does it come this time of year and not this time of year? Now I'm hearing a lot more about street sweeping, and it was just one of those things that no one talked about. Well, there was one person. So no one but this one person was talking to me about it. I don't like giving blanket statements because if that is I'm that person. I used to do that to electeds. You can't say you haven't heard this because I told you. So there was one person I do remember talking to me about it. But other than that, it wasn't overwhelming on street sweeping. So again, no matter what your concern is, it's trees, if it's cutting the grass in parks, if it's some form of repair, if it's some major service, if it's public safety, unless you speak up about that, then we don't know what you think about it. And again, everything you have to say about that is important. So please engage with the budget. Even if you're not there Monday night, we'll have more public opportunities on the budget, whether it's social media, whether it's in person. I think they'll even be going to some neighborhood associations. We won't be able to hit every neighborhood association, but engage with the budget. Look at the things that you want to see. And if you continue to look at the council retreats or workshops that we have on it, you'll kind of see what direction we're going. A lot of what we're looking at right now is based on the citizen survey. I want to encourage you, if you ever have that, take it, because it goes out to over 2,000 people. And normally we don't get a lot of response on that, but we do listen. So if you don't fill out that survey and think that we don't care and everyone else's priority is on there, yours isn't. You really can have an influence. Like, we look at all of that. I know that it's said that we don't, but we'll look at social media, we'll look at our email, we look at what people tell us in person, and then we have this survey. We look at all of those things as we're making decisions. Anytime you have a chance to give input on the budget, please do so. Again, it really does make an impact. So that's Monday night here at the District Advisory Board. Past that,
What time?
6 o'clock. Here in that one, in this room. Other than that, my last update is we just did a public open house on the Bleckley flooding project. Bleckley is the #1 flooding issue in the city of Wichita. It has been, I think, since 1980. 5 or so councils have continued to push it down the road because of how expensive it is. So where we are now, it's a $36 million project. It will cause us to take out Bleckley as a street over time and put this large, you'll see this presentation Monday if you come as well, this large concrete box in the street that's supposed to take all the water out. So we will be digging down pretty deep. It's gonna take a while. This project goes all the way from Kellogg and Bleckley up to Murdoch, so north of Central. The original project went to 13th Street and took in Clydesdale Park. It will not do that anymore. We're focusing on Murdoch and further south because the money that would have been spent north of there didn't really make that much of an impact. So we want to be efficient with the money. So that project went from like 34 million to 72 million to 36 million. So it was a lot of work. It's gonna take a while because there's a lot of major utilities in there. There's an AT&T utility that had to be relocated. And again, going down that deep, it's gonna disrupt the neighborhood a bit. We only had one person really say something that was a concern, and that was just, we were spending too much money and we should use gates. But I've been there when it's flooding and on a light rain and you see that river going and how deep it is and how fast it moves. I respect that opinion, but I don't think a gate is enough. Somebody could get killed. That water is strong enough to take a full truck and push it down 2 or 3 blocks. So we have to do something about that. Once we get done with that, I think the number 2 issue is in District 3. And I think the number 3 issue is back in District 1. And I believe it's down off of Murdoch by the Halls, that construction building. And that's gonna be a huge project in CIP because that deals with flooding from the canal all the way downtown to St. Francis. And that's gonna be a lot of work. I saw that and I was like, I won't be on council when that happens. That'll be the next council member still right there, but yeah, I think those are all of my updates. Happy to answer any questions about any subjects.
Okay, when are they gonna work on 17th Street?
17th Street, I think starts 3rd quarter this year.
Oh, okay. And it'll take care of that flooding like after that brief rain Tuesday?
It should, all the models that we looked at, because we're redoing some stormwater and that too, should do that. And again, it'll convert to 3 lanes like, hillside.
I was wondering, why some, houses are getting trees in that Adams and some houses are not.
Why some are getting trees and why some are not?
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look as to why the ones who are not. You can call and say you don't want the trees. And they were supposed to put something on the door. So I've had maybe 12 to 15 people call me and say they didn't want the trees and we worked it out and they didn't get trees. So it could be that. But again, that program is based on a few things. So we know that lower income communities, especially this one, has less trees. It's actually hotter in the summer in parts of the city that have more mature trees. There was a NASA study done on that. So what the council is trying to do, it's not gonna help them this year, but make that investment in trees now so that in the next 10 to 12 years when they grow, this part of our community will be just as cool as the rest of it.
Well, some places you have 5 or 6 trees. And some places don't have any. And I'm asking because if on the same block I'm on, you got people got trees. You don't have a tree, and nobody that I know of, why it called and said they didn't want one.
Well, I mean, if you want trees, let us know.
Who do I call?
You can reach out to me, you can reach out to Cameron. Ultimately, it's Gary Ferris and Forestry. But if you don't want to reach out directly to him, you can reach out to one of us. We'll get you connected.
So in 20 to 30 years, when those trees, are really fully mature and they're buckling the sidewalk, whose responsibility is that?
Per state statute is the property owner.
No, so can it be in writing that if I request a tree that the city will repair it in 20 to 30 years? And I don't have
That's
to
state
in my
statute,
retirement age?
probably not. I wanted that. I wanted a program for us to pay for that because I think we should.
Yeah.
State statute says it. And to me, state statute. Oh, man, there are 2 types of trees.
But you can't request the kind of tree you want.
You can request one of the 2 types of trees.
But only of the 2. You need to request each.
But there are programs that have free trees. Elizabeth Bishop was here. I think it's ICT Trees. They have or maybe had 5,000 trees they were trying to give out. They might be gone now. And they have different types other than the two we have. ICT trees.
There were 20 houses, I believe, city-owned houses down on Murdoch. There was a floodplain. Regularly housed a floodplain now.
That's a different part of the floodplain. There was a point that developer had for a parcel in that area that they were gonna do the actual work to remove all that out of the floodplain. But they ended up not doing that project and selling their property to someone else. That's the main floodplain.
So, but they talked about bulldozing 20 houses.
Yeah, so the number that I heard was not 20, it was 4 houses and they were in pretty bad shape. And I don't know that that's gonna happen because they haven't been torn down.
But those aren't for sale.
No, but you can go look at it. They will be at some.
Yeah, just real quick. First of all, I learned from you that it's important to have employment opportunities for convicted felons. Thank you. That wasn't something on my radar. And you may or may not know the answer, but to be a bus driver, I mean, does the city hire people with felony convictions?
I think it depends on the felony and the department. The city was the second, I think, organization in Wichita to ban the box. Coke did it first, and then the city did it in 2015, maybe. So that won't be an initial question. But I think it will depend on what your actual condition
Sure,
is.
that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. But thank you for that. One more thing to advocate.
You said on the Bleckley project, you're taking Bleckley out as a residential street.
So that street that's there is gonna have to come up for some time so we can dig under there and put that there and then rebuild it.
It'll become back in the street then.
Yeah. Okay. We just gotta put the water stuff. The presentation Monday will show, so we were trying to get down, I think, to, not dry, but basically, no water at all on the street, and that was what was driving the cost up. The new proposal gets it down to like 2 inches for the most part, which, well, on a really bad flood, it may be up to 6, but that's better than 5 feet, so just trying to get it down there. Any other questions?
Yeah, so you're eligible for election for the next one, so you're moving along. So to entice the conversation for the next representative, we do need to address the nature of our First Amendment rights and your current illegal behavior blocking activists from your political. And I bring this up because of the nature of a First Amendment right and the nature of public domain. Your personal political page, where you are invoking the name councilman, is not yours solely. You are invoking the name of the broader community. So when you block activists that are abolitionists or anti-capitalists, that is illegal behavior. And it's behavior that can change, particularly for US television forward. And just to set an example for what is happening here in our own district. So if you can give commentary about perhaps your decision to produce this illegal political behavior, and maybe your future actions ensuring that counter narrative is not stifled for personal feelings.
Is counter narrative stifled in this space right now?
Well, it's this public space, if
Do you not have access to me on social?
I do not have access to your personal
So how is it
political
that I
page.
see your comments on the Wichita District page?
So you are invoking our name.
I'm not invoking it.
Yes, you are. You have a page that says you are Councilman Brandon Johnson of Wichita District 1. That is my page as well, as much as everyone else.
Do you have access to me on Wichita District 1?
So you are indeed stifling.
Not stifling anything. I see
Yes.
every comment that you make.
Your political page.
I see the ones where you call me
Political
names. I
page.
see the ones where you post family members' addresses.
I
see the ones
will
where you
I will
post-
come and protest second house.
You do protest freely in America.
Yes, but you are utilizing something that the ACLU deems public access. You do not have the right to block this and prevent that counter narrative from engaging in.
There is no counter narrative that is blocked. Anything.
I do not see the words that you are
That is
posting.
my official page.
Your official
That
page
is my official.
is everybody's page because you're not. Councilman Brandon J. Johnson.
Would you like me to show you your comments on that?
So you're intentionally ignoring my commentary?
I'm essentially ignoring it.
I have access to the Wichita District 1. I have
Yes,
limited
you do.
this.
So you have access to me. That is your public domain.
No, the
That
public
is where
domain,
information is shared as
the
well.
public domain, you are stealing our name by using Councilman Brandon J. Johnson.
That's my.
Councilman is my name, it's their name,
No,
not
it's-
everyone's.
You've been elected.
Are
Are you not District
Do
One
you not know
councilman?
how the First Amendment rights,
I do.
do you not know how democracy works? You are
That is how you have military.
you are us right now.
And I'm listening to everyone, including.
Well, you're,
whether it's right or-
I don't think it's fair.
because you're committing illegal acts.
That is your-
So you are committing to continue to produce illegal solicitation.
No.
I'm blocked. You are committing illegal behavior.
If I block you on District One, that is illegal behavior. It's no longer controlled. But you have access here, you have access to the call. Be messages. This is not blocked.
Our public name.
That's not your personal. You win an election in your council.
Yeah, because then I was getting false messages.
I've been losing.
You did good. I appreciate that.
Committed to this illegal behavior. Thank you. I appreciate your commitment to illegal behavior. Brandon J. Johnson.
That is your opinion, sir.
Not an opinion, it's fact.
Thank you all. I will see you all next month here at Atwater.
For Monday.
Or Monday.
See you Monday.
I want to thank you for having a memorial, CIT, 3 o'clock.